longer do or ask my staff or the RCMP. So the recommendation, again, Council direct administration to issue an RFP for the provision of automated traffic enforcement services, speed only, for a 4-year term. I did want to highlight, and I did include in the report, that there have been discussions with the staff sergeant in regards to the program. He, as the detachment commander and joint holder or overseer of the program, is supportive of continuing the program. No questions? Thank you.
I'll have one or two. Oh, Councillor Mara.
Thank you for your report. How many hours per week did you say that they do photo radar?
Our contract specifies 24 hours per week.
24 hours per week. Mm-hmm. And regarding the trailer that you can move around from each neighborhood, what would a resident do to request it put in their neighborhood so you could see if there was a problem?
So they contact our bylaw services department or our streets and roads department. Right on the trailer, I think it says questions 678-4244, and then between the supervisors, they would schedule it into the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
In your report, you just second paragraph on the discussion, you're talking about the fact that Canmore's been audited 3 times by a Solicitor General. And isn't there didn't we just complete another audit or report of some kind?
So we completed an audit in 2017.
But wasn't there a provincial study?
Yes,
compliance?
so the current government, the NDP government, is currently conducting a review of the photo enforcement program. So I brought the request for proposals that the Alberta Transportation issued, and I'll just highlight a couple of points. So the introduction from Honourable Brian Mason, Minister of Transportation, was quoted in May of 2017. There's a strong public view, I think, that photo radar has gone beyond just enforcing safe traffic and has become, in some cases, a bit of a cash cow for municipalities. This is a misuse. If that is occurring, we need to know the degree to which that is occurring, and we need to make sure that we correct that. There's a bunch of background behind it, when photo radar started, who does it, the jurisdiction. Highlights City of Calgary first introduced it in 1987. The project schedule calls for commencements by February 5th, completion of services by May 15th. So they've awarded the contract. We've supplied information to them. So what they were looking for was number of hours of enforcement, whether you have contracted costs or not, and where have you spent the outflow of your reserves. So similar numbers to what I provided this evening, broke it down into different pots of money. I have tried to reach out to the project manager or the provincial government to see if we're still on target for the May 15th date, and I've yet to receive a response from them. So that's the most recent review that you're likely thinking about.
That's the one I was thinking about.
Yep.
So some point in the next short period of time, we'll hear something from them.
Yes, yeah, I hope so.
Thanks. Councillor Hillstead?
Thank you for your report. Along the same line there with the provincial review. So if it does come back that they don't like photo radar anymore, if we go to RFP, like if it comes back later than May 15th, then do we have something in the RFP that basically, if it gets canceled by the province, your contract is terminated, we don't pay anything extra?
Exactly. So we would include that in the RFP. We'd also include it in the contract. So if we issue a new contract, we start September 2nd, and the review comes out in December that contracted services can no longer provide photo enforcement, there would be a specific clause, a termination clause within it. Absolutely.
Perfect.
So is that a potential outcome of the provincial survey, that they would simply disallow photo radar anywhere in the province?
I'm making an assumption. Honestly, I know as much as you do and what's being provided in the RFP. So again, I've had no communication with the province at this time.
Okay, perfect.
I wish I could provide more.
you know, when you were talking about the negative impact on the role of community peace officer, if we should go to an in-house program, it reminded me of the conversations council had in 2007 when we first approved that, and that was one of the strongest arguments against starting it up in-house, was recognizing that our bylaw officers already have a tough rap in Canmore through enforcing off-leash dogs and things like that. So that hasn't changed. As well, in the report, the stakeholder engagement, you know, the staff sergeant is supportive of continuing with photo radar, and as the staff sergeant was in 2007, in fact, I recall at that time the RCMP were actively encouraging the town consider initiating the photo radar.
Yes, yeah, it's great to see the support continue.
Yeah. On the other hand, you know, some of the pushback I hear from people is when you're talking about the advantages of creating a traffic enforcement unit within the town, people that I've talked with suggest that they'd rather get a ticket from a person and talk face-to-face to the issuing officer. I think maybe because often they can talk their way out of it.
Have you been stopped by a sheriff in the last 10 years on the highway? Because
No,
you
good
cannot
God.
talk yourself out of those ones.
No, I haven't been stopped by
No.
a sheriff. Councillor Comfort.
Yeah, I got forgiven. Little old lady defense. But,
Ah.
no, I have a question. No, it was, never mind, I'll tell you after.
Okay.
But the question I had, is, there was a blip where a number of tickets were forgiven. And have we resolved that sort of possibility of that recurrence of that problem?
Thank you for bringing that up,
Sorry.
Councillor Comfort. Yeah, so I would say that there's always contract management that's required in the program. In 2016, you're correct, we did refund 1,467 tickets. They were still legally, technically valid tickets where vehicles were speeding within a 30-kilometer-an-hour zone. I didn't feel that it met the intent of the program, so it was a lot of work and resources, and I always wanted to ensure that we were standing behind the program and I could stand before you and the community in terms of the program. So that was a big challenge, but I'd say there's ongoing reviews, like I said, monthly, quarterly, to say, well, let's readjust here, let's readjust here. You're spending a bit too much time here. Let's, you know, we've provided direction to focus on 7th Avenue in front of Lawrence Grassy Middle School at increased hours for the next 3 months to do a bit of an evaluation to say how effective was the traffic calming in that area. What we can do is we can take the statistics pre-construction at violations per hour and now compare it to violations per hour, enforcement to enforcement. So I would say it's rectified. There's in any contract we manage, whether it's Mr. Como and EPCOR, myself in Photo Radar, and whoever the service provider is, we need to stay on top of things.
So I wanted to commend you on that because it meant that you were going to maintain the goodwill of the community. And really what we want is people not to speed, right? Not to drive dangerously. So thank you for your hard work.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Councillor Sanford.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Mr. Burt, for your presentation and for outlining the pros and cons of all the directions that we could possibly take with this. Given what we just heard about the RCMP contract, if we went that route of having the RCMP manage the program, we would have to increase the staffing even from what was presented to us in the RCMP, in the future strategy.
Just to clarify, for my understanding, if we were giving it to the RCMP to do traditional enforcement and step away from, yes.
So one of the options was to do it in-house and to do using RCMP or CPOs.
No, so to do it in-house through our bylaw services department, so it would still be community peace officers that were sitting in the vehicle, so we'd be increasing our community peace officer program. The RCMP would still be involved in terms of setting locations, speed tolerances, and durations of the program, but it wouldn't be RCMP officers sitting inside RCMP cruisers operating the program.
Okay, so you still wouldn't get the RCMP coming to your window and have that one-on-one face conversation?
But option 3 is that would...
Yeah, so maybe if we can focus on the options.
Yeah.
Option 1 is nothing. Option 2 is bring it in-house, so no RCMP coming to your window. Option 3 would be either RCMP or community peace officers, or a mixture of those two, doing traditional traffic enforcement, stopping vehicles, issuing tickets roadside.
And that's the one I'm referring to. If the RCMP were involved in that way, we would have to hire more RCMP than what we have in the strategic plan?
Yes, so the strategic plan recognizes that even with photo enforcement, there could be an opportunity to add a roaming traffic unit per se in the community as the community continues to grow, in addition to photo enforcement. However, if we discontinued photo radar, we'd actually be changing the plan and likely be coming back before council to, like I said, add RCMP or community peace officers sooner rather than what was identified. I believe it was 2021. Yeah.
And then in that regard, we would also lose the photo radar funding for the 1.5% 1.5 RCMP personnel? Or would that money just shift to the RCMP from what was collected through that program?
I haven't completed a full statistical analysis on an estimation on number of tickets that RCMP officers would issue. Okay. We would lose all of the net revenues, which are on average about $300,000 a year. Again, offsetting a lot of the policing costs, or not a lot, sorry, offsetting about $190,000 of the policing costs.
So we can't be guaranteed that we would have the efficiencies either in our community peace officers to issue the same volume of tickets or to be as proactive on?
I would suggest that it would be impossible to issue the same amount of tickets that photo enforcement does. If you think about, and I'm going back a few years when I used to write traffic tickets, a good hour was probably 4, right? So if you think about stopping or standing roadside, stopping vehicle, having the interaction, 4 per hour, you're on a 10-hour shift, 3 hours of that is administrative. So I'm doing now a 7-hour shift, on a good day, I'm issuing 20, 25 tickets. Compared to photo enforcement, one of the advantages from a ticketing perspective is the ability to capture multiple people. So again, having conducted a thorough analysis financial analysis into option 3.
But then option 2 is doing in-house photo radar with all the equipment, with all the...
Yes.
So there is a potential to do similar volume if we invested into that equipment ourselves?
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
But then, as you say, we've got staff turnover and
staff turnover,
have to cover
negative perception, and capacity.
Right.
I'm at or beyond capacity, as is our team, so we'd have to be pretty creative in terms of how we figured out how to add the capacity, both from an oversight standpoint, but also administratively.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Just in along that line of conversation, so we shouldn't get too hung up on volume of fines issued. It's more about how successful we are at slowing drivers down. And arguably, playing devil's advocate on that conversation, paying a uniformed person to stand by the side of the road is going to slow people down considerably, regardless of, how many tickets they actually end up writing. So if the real focus is slowing people down, having that presence on the streets would do it as well.
I agree. And I just wanted to highlight that even with photo enforcement, our RCMP officers are still out conducting traffic enforcement in the community. So a certain portion of their time is spent conducting traffic enforcement. They issue a number of violations for speeding, stop signs, distracted driving, etc. But photo radar augments the traffic enforcement program. However, if we were to end it, there would just be the limited capacity they have with the current resources they have to conduct traffic enforcement.
So there is an opportunity if councillors have questions specific to the financial data around the contracted service. If there's an interest in some Q&A on that, we could go in camera for that discussion, but if there's not, then no need. And I'm seeing no need. No need.
Great. Thank you.
Hold on.
Oh. You know there's hockey playoffs on.
Yep. No, that's all I've got.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burt. So then I will move council-directed administration to issue an RFP for the provision of automated traffic enforcement services, speed only, for a 4-year term. And I'm sure everybody will want to speak to this motion. But I'll speak to it right now. I was on council when we first approved photo radar, and I clearly remember the discussions that council went through and the presentations from administration and the encouragement of the RCMP, and the whole focus was on slowing drivers down. And while it continues to be unpopular program amongst a number of Canmore residents, I think the information that we've developed, the data that we've collected over the years shows that we're being successful in that initiative. Is the use of a photo radar contract the only way of slowing people down? Obviously not, but I've never been supportive of the idea of handing that off to our own staff for the reasons we talked about in the presentation. It's tough enough to walk these streets when you're a bylaw officer. I don't think adding speeding tickets to their job description is going to help us improve that relationship or community acceptance of bylaw. And I'm not that supportive of basically, handing it off to the RCMP. I think we started to get into those discussions during the Q&A. It's when the RCMP were here in 2007 encouraging us to initiate the photo radar, it was so that they could free up some of their own staff to do actual policing work rather than standing side of the road issuing tickets, slowing people down. So I will support the motion. Councillor Sanford.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, I see that you gave us some options and you kind of gave us the perspective of those options, which is important, I think, for us to consider and look at. But when we look at the numbers of in the past, the tickets issued, and the change in behavior, I think in 2017, the local resident behavior has obviously changed quite significantly. I'm one of them because I used to get photo radar tickets, 10 years ago. And I would pay them and I go, well, that's the price of doing business, but I don't get them anymore. So it's not that I know where the cars are, I know what they look like, it's that I just have changed my behavior. So I see that 26% of our population has done the same thing. To run it in-house, I could see how variable the program would be because of the staff turnover and getting it to be consistent, I think, is important. I think the consistency of the program over the last 10 years has probably affected that behavior, that we're quite capable of changing that behavior. And I do think that it's a good program to support under the current conditions. If we're going to go to RFP, we'll get a good competitive opportunity amongst contractors, so I would happily support the RFP process for photo radar.
Councillor Mera.
I too will support this motion. I agree with Mayor Borelman and Councillor Sanford. And it's good to know that the money is going back into the community and for safety initiatives and student initiatives to carry on in the role of enforcement and education, including the students that go and take driver's education courses and get a rebate. So it positively enforces them taking these courses. So I will support this.
Councillor Hillstead.
I will also be supporting this for many of the same reasons that everyone else has stated so far. It's all about safety, and the stats show that people are starting to drive safer, at least the locals, so it's always a good thing.
Locals, that's right. See no further discussion on the motion. I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. I'll then move the council go in camera. Those in favor? Opposed? We're in camera. I'll then move the council go in camera. Those in favor? Opposed? We're in camera. I'll then move the council go in camera. Those in favor? Opposed? We're in camera. I'll then move the council go in camera. Those in favor? Opposed? We're in camera.